Hi, my name is Darren Joseph from HCJ.tax, and we're the team that seeks to demystify that sometimes confusing world of international tax. And today we have the honor and privilege of having another conversation with Mark. Mark, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Mark Morris. I'm based in Zurich. I've been here for nearly 30 years, and I've exclusively devoted myself to automatic exchange of information since the year 2000. And I've been consultant to the EU Commission, the EU Parliament, the OECD regarding automatic exchange, as well as consulting for Tax Justice Network and various other parties. And I would say today, after 25 years, I'm the only person in the entire world that is promoting structures in 4 or 5 different territories that nobody seems to touch. But we'll go through those territories today.
Fantastic. Could you, again, I think you mentioned them in passing previously, but could you comment on the parties involved and the execution of the deed or whatever the contract would be?
By the way, there's a very good sample of the deed on my website, and you can download it. I think it was about 30 pages. I remember it cost me about 30,000 euros to have a corporate service provider write that for me, and so on. Parties are free in determining the structure and the arrangements, etc., the terms and conditions, as we said. The FGR this is interesting. The FGR, how is it established? How is it set up? It's purely by the execution of the notarial deed. Execution means the signing by the 3 parties. Once the 3 parties sign the deed, the FGR is in operation. As I said, you're not even getting any authority involved. So the parties involved are the fund manager, and I'll tell you the restrictions on who can be a fund manager, the depository custodian, and you can have one participant, but then it's not recognized as a fund, and then you can't get your tax back and so on. But I think the way you were correct in saying set up 2 entities and then have 2 participants. The terms and conditions include the name, so you can name your fund anything you want, its purpose, and the purpose is just general, to increase the value of our investments, or a few words. Under what conditions can you have dissolution and liquidation? Basically, it would be when more than 3/4 of the participants agree to dissolve. Where the seat of the FGR is, this is one that confused me. I said we're a fund manager and we're based outside of Holland. Are we the seat? No, the seat is somewhere in Holland. You've got to pick a corporate service provider or a notary that writes the deed, etc. That's the seat. So the seat has to be in Holland. Under what conditions you can have new participants? Is it to family members only? If it's open to anybody, then it's open, and then you've got to pay tax on that. How are you going to allocate the profits? Do you do that annually? Do you retain it, etc.? How do you substitute the fund manager and the depository custodian? And the conditions that the fund manager must, can he invest in anything? What are the restrictions, etc.? Now, this is interesting. You don't have to have a depository. The fund manager could be keeping the assets, but generally there's a separate agreement, a custody agreement between the depository custodian and the fund manager. There are 2 parties that do the fund. That's the fund manager and the participants. And then there's a separate custody agreement between those 2 and the depository. It's 2 agreements, generally done on the same paper. The depository custodian is managed by a board of directors acting as custodian. So the depository custodian holds the legal title to all the investments in the fund. That's why they use a stichting rather than a trust, because a trust doesn't really own the assets, where a stichting does actually own the assets. This is interesting. The participants don't actually have a proprietary interest in the investments. They only have a contractual right against the depository custodian for the value. The participants don't own the assets direct. All they have is the right to the value. Okay. Each participant signs a subscription agreement with the fund manager and at the same time a depository custodian and the administrator of the FGR. There's no liability of the participants other than the contractual liability to pay up the contribution that they said that they would make. That's another reason why people do that, because there are other funds with unlimited liability. Your liability is only what you said that you're going to be putting into the fund.
Okay.
Mark, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do so?
As I travel a lot, the best way to get hold of me is via my website, co-ownershiptrust.com. And then you can email me or try get hold of me by phone, but that depends on the country that I'm in. If they've got cell phone coverage, I go to some really remote places in the world, Falkland Islands, St. Helena, etc. So the best is via my website.